Hello and welcome. You are now looking at the welcome screen from the Quicken personal financial software being used on the desktop. And you'll notice on the welcome screen that if you have an older version, you'll be asked by Quicken in order to create a new ID. There used to be a time when this software was actually owned by a company called Intuit, and the differences are worth talking about. In the 2016 edition, Quicken was actually owned by the company Intuit, and the software ran on Windows and the Mac. You may notice that the 2017 edition is no longer being advertised as being owned by Intuit. In fact, if you were to go and purchase that edition now, you may not be able to find it. One of the other differences that you may note is that in 2017, Quicken had a separate edition for those who owned rental property. And this was actually run as a separate version of Quicken, and someone would have had to purchase that edition in order to get the conveniences of the menus and the categories. However, as of the recording of this video, Quicken is now a subscription service. And you'll notice that you would be able to go to the Quicken website, you would be able to purchase Quicken home, business, and rental property all in one unit, and you'd be able to purchase by downloading this particular package. The reason for this is that Intuit actually sold the Quicken software to a private equity firm in 2016. That meant then that the company that has always been very closely related to it, Intuit, which actually owns the software TurboTax and QuickBooks, as well as the Mint website, continues to run as a separate entity and separate from Quicken. This is why, depending on which version that you actually have, you may be asked to recreate an ID in order to get started using your desktop software. Now, if that's the case and you have trouble with this process, you'll notice that there is a support number at the bottom of the page, but you can go ahead and get started by creating a new Quicken ID even if you have an Intuit ID already. Once you have created your ID, you will be asked to sign in to the software, and we will do that right now. Now, one final step that you'll be asked to take is you'll be asked to enter, if you have one, an Intuit ID. Now, again, if you don't have one, then you won't need to actually go through this process, but if you have a previous ID that you created with Intuit, maybe you used TurboTax, or maybe you used a previous version of Quicken, you'll need to have that ID ready in order to place into this password box. Now, when you place that password, you'll be asked to create a new password for the Quicken Vault. And so once you create your password, then you'll click OK. Now, one aspect of the process is that you will then be able to set up your mobile application in order to sync with what you're doing on your desktop with Quicken. And in order to do that, you'll need to go through a step on this page, and then you'll click Next. Once you've completed this password process, you will then be ready to start using Quicken. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, in order to keep your business and home finances organized with Quicken, you'll need to note what Quicken does and how long it will do it for you. Now, one of the things that you'll note is that the Quicken Home and Business subscription actually does and is made for separating and categorizing your business expenses, tracking your profit and loss deductions, as well as running your tax statements for your tax professional. Now, what's important to note is Quicken's discontinuation policy in terms of how long they'll be supporting some previous versions of Quicken. And you'll want to make sure that you take a look at your version of Quicken and that you'll note when Quicken will discontinue support for that edition. Obviously, if you purchase their subscription product, it will always be in force as long as your subscription is paid. So if you intend to download some of the information that you'll be getting from online billers into Quicken, this is an important feature of the subscription service that Quicken keeps updated. And as you go forward, you may want to consider the subscription service just for this feature alone. It is a more automated feature than if you're using one of the earlier versions. Of course, as is the case with everything, it is worth having a conversation with your tax professional if this will make things easier for you to deliver to them in order to complete your taxes. However, for keeping track of where your business is versus your personal finances every day, Quicken can be a good way of being able to see at a glance what you have available. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk briefly about navigating Quicken and some of the features that you're going to find as you use the software. Now, if you go to the file command, you're going to notice that you can actually open a new Quicken file or one that is existing. You can actually copy your Quicken file, and this is the file that you're creating as you enter data. You can set a password for your data file in case someone else is using your PC. You don't want to have anyone else who is altering your data. And then you can be a little more specific and you can set a password for those who would have access to the account, but you don't want them to be able to modify transactions. You can actually back up your Quicken file, and it's actually a good practice to do this every time that you use the software. Before you close, you should actually back up what you have done. And you can actually restore from a backup. So if you have a backup file that you have created, your software isn't working, you can go to your backup file and actually restore what you have done in your work. You can import a file into Quicken, and so there are several areas that you can import data. You can import data from TurboTax and Microsoft Money, as well as previous versions of Quicken. You can export your file. So for example, if you want to use QuickBooks or some other financial software, you can actually do that using the file export command. You have several options of file operations. You can actually put together a year-end copy or a copy of your file, and then all of the other features you'll note would be the same in any other program. Now, one thing that you do want to be aware of is where your file is located on your personal computer. Typically, it's going to be in your Documents folder, but you want to be able to find this folder at will. And if you want to actually back up that file to a cloud drive, you want to be able to find it so that you'll be able to do that. Now, in keeping your finances organized, one of the things that you'll want to do is you'll want to be able to create reports that will tell you certain things when you want to know them based on specific dates. And Quicken can actually do that for you in terms of your banking, in terms of doing comparison, what your balances are, comparing them to where they were some previous period, spending, your taxes, your business, and this will be of particular interest to you if you're trying to keep your personal and your business separate. You'll be able to look at your business at a glance using these reports, and we will actually be focused on these reports in this course. You can actually look at those reports in terms of graphs if you want to do something that's a little more visual. And then they actually have options for you to be able to work with your credit score. So Quicken is actually a way for you to be able to organize your financial activity so that you'll be able to keep your personal life separate from the business and then be able to make good decisions about your business. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Hello and welcome. Now, one of the first things we're going to do to get started is we're going to go to the file command. And as you recall, what we want to do is we want to set the password for the data file. And that means then that only someone with the password can actually use the data file that we're going to be inputting data into. Now, when we click the link, we are given an option to set the custom password. We're going to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and write that password in this dialog box. Now, you do have the option of using the data file without a password, but it's always a good safety measure to actually go ahead and create a password that you are going to remember with the data file. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click OK. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to the file command. We are then going to set a password to modify transactions. And this is going to give you the ability to make sure that someone who has access to your Quicken account cannot go back and modify transactions. And this means then that you will make sure that your transactions, as you place them in, the software will remain the same. For example, if someone is using the account with you, you don't want them to be able to go back and manipulate transactions in order to change information, in order to reflect something that really did not happen. So we're going to go ahead and click the Set Password to modify transactions. Okay, now once we've done that, we're going to click OK. We're now going to back up our file, and we're going to go to the backup command. Then we're going to click Backup Quicken File. And we're going to be given some information about the file. It's going to be where we designate it. Now we can actually change the directory where we want this backup to be placed, and then we will then click the Backup Now button. And once you have that information, what you can do is you can actually take your backup and you can place it in your cloud drive, just so that you'll have a double measure of safety and security. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now going to start adding data to our account to reflect our actual financial position. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the Tools area, and we're going to click Add an Account. Now, typically, the first thing we're going to enter will be our cash on hand. And so we want to go ahead and just click this Cash button. And we're going to actually just write in here whatever we want to call the cash account. You can call it cash account or cash on hand. Now you will be able to add other cash accounts if there is more than one person who is working with this particular Quicken file. So for example, if you and a significant other are operating your business together, you can actually write in several cash on accounts. So what you can do in that case is just write in where this is. You can then designate primarily how the account is going to be used. And so what we can do is we can then say that this account is going to primarily be used for business, and then we can then click Next. Now typically your best practice is that you're going to start pulling reports. Now typically you're going to start pulling reports at the point at which you create your Quicken account. So you can write in the cash on hand that you have at the point at which you're creating the account. You can either go back in time or you can go back to the beginning of the month. So in this particular case, we're just going to assume that the cash on hand right now is $136. And once you've entered that number, you're then going to click Next. And then you'll have your first account ready inside of Quicken. Now let's say that you actually discover that you have more than $136 when you open the account, and you discover that you had $10 more and you had that $10 10 days before. So how would we handle that? We then want to look at our account page by going to this link. We then want to open up the business account. And then we want to click on Thomas's cash on hand. We then come to this account page. And what we want to do is we actually want to edit this amount. We want to change this to an earlier date. So we're actually going to change our opening balance as well as our opening date. So let's do that right now. We then go to this opening balance. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to click on the date. We're going to change this now to 10 days earlier, and we're going to walk this to the 5th. And then once we change that date, we are then going to click the Save button. And then we're saying that we're actually going to record a transfer back into the Save account. We're going to click Yes, Save Anyway. Now you'll note that because we're actually going back to change a password, it's going to require us to enter that password that we set up. So we're going to go ahead and put that password in. And then we're going to click OK. And you're going to notice then that the date has then changed to the 5th. What we're also going to do now is we're going to change the amount, and we're just going to click inside of the amount. We're going to write in the $10 more and make this now $146 that we started with on the 5th. We're going to click Save. And then Quicken is going to give us this warning message. We're going to click Yes. Again, because we are editing a transaction that has actually already occurred, we're going to be required to put that password in again. and we're going to click OK. And you'll notice now that we have changed our cash on hand to the day that we reflected. We know that we had $146. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now going to add in a standard PayPal account. And so in order to do that, we're then going to go to the Tools menu. We're going to go and click Add an Account. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to click the checking account. We're then going to write in the name of our financial institution, and we're just going to write in PayPal. You'll notice then that you have your PayPal account there. You're then going to click PayPal. Quicken will then ask you for the name that you normally use to log into PayPal, as well as the password, and then you'll want to save this inside of Quicken. So you can go ahead and write in your login and password for PayPal. And once you've done that, you can click Save this password. You'll then be required to enter your vault password. And then once you do that, you will then click the Connect button. Quicken will then start looking for your account at PayPal to begin looking for the transaction data. Quicken will then find this information. You can then designate how you want this to be classified. So for example, if you want to classify it as a savings account, you can do that, but typically you would classify it as a checking account. You can then choose as to whether or not you're going to have the data added. So you can actually choose not to download all of the data into Quicken. You will still have your account connected, and then at a point at which you designate, you can have your account transaction pulled into Quicken. But since what we're going to do is we're going to choose a point in time to create a financial statement, it's actually okay to go back and have data from the past added to your Quicken. So in most cases, you're going to leave this checked where it says Add to Quicken. We're going to write a nickname for that account, and we can actually edit that where it says nickname. And then we can designate how this account is primarily used. And so we're going to then click Business. And what this does is this actually will associate certain transactions with business-related categories as they come across from Quicken. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to click the Next button. Quicken will then start adding the transaction data. You'll then see that your PayPal has then been added. You'll also note that it has been synced to the Quicken Cloud, where you can also access from your mobile device. Once you've done that, you'll then click Finish. Quicken will then sync your data. You'll then get a message that your data has been synced to the cloud as well as to your account. Then PayPal and all the transactions typically that you've had over the last 90 days will then be entered into Quicken. And you will then have this data that you will have ready that you can start working with. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now going to go through a step that you will be going through every time that you download transactions into your Quicken. You'll want to do it at the beginning when you first download transactions, and then you'll want to do it on a regular basis when you start bringing transactions over. And that is determining what category an event actually is. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to go through each transaction. And initially, this was going to be a lot of work when you first pull transactions over. Obviously, when you're doing less and you're doing this more frequently, it won't be as much work. So all you'll need to do is to come to the category area. When you notice a transaction, you will bring this drop down arrow. And then what you're going to do is you're going to determine what it actually is. If it is business income, you're going to click this link. And then you might determine that it is one of the categories that Quicken has already given you. However, what you could do is you could create a new category. And if that is the case, then what you're going to want to do is to click this blue button that says New Category. You're then going to write in the name of the category that you're going to be tracking. You'll determine if it is an income or an expense. And then you'll also determine if it is a subcategory. So maybe perhaps you already have an income category or an expense category, and you like for this new category to just be a subcategory of the one that's already there. If that's the case, what you're going to do is you're going to click this button, and then you'll use the drop down arrow to find the subcategory. And Quicken has a list of those that are already embedded in the program. It's a good idea to write in a description of what this category actually is. And once you determine what you're going to do, you're going to make sure that your descriptions are what they say they are. You briefly want to take a look at the tax reporting tab. Now, in general, when you are setting up these categories, you do want to check with your tax professional, since the reports you'll be using, you'll be passing on to them at the end of the year or at the point of a tax year. So as you determine what tax-related category you're going to determine this to be, make sure that you're checking with the person that's actually going to be working on your taxes. So once we've done that, we're going to click Save. What you're then going to do is you'll go through each transaction when you pull them over. And again, this is going to be the case as you do this on a regular basis. You're going to determine what the transaction actually is. So in the one case, everything on the deposit side will tend to be income transactions. Everything on the right side will be expense transactions. And again, you will be determining how you categorize these transactions. You want to try to be consistent so that when you start doing reports, you'll know what you are looking at. So for example, when you determine that there's a fee, you can just actually go and search for the category if you think it's already in Quicken. And when you do the search, Quicken will bring up a list of the fees or whatever it is that you are searching for that is available. And then you'll be able to just click the link to determine this to be something that's already there. So now once you've decided on an account's category, all you'll then need to do is then sync this to your Quicken account. And you can do that by going to the one-step update, and then you can just do a one-step update either of all your accounts or just the one that you are working on. In this particular case, this is the PayPal standard account. You'll get a warning notification from Quicken, and then you're going to click Update Now. Quicken will watch the progress, and your account is then updated, and you can click Close. So then you will have updated one entire account once you have actually brought transactions in. And you'll want to do this for every account that you bring over initially, and you'll also want to do this on a regular basis as you update the account. Now, obviously, you're going to be doing this more with your revenue accounts as well as your main expense accounts. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, there are a couple of special scenarios to think about when you are going to add in a PayPal for Business account. So if you were to go to the Tools menu and you would click Add Account, and then you were going to add in another checking account, and you were going to add in another PayPal account. You'd click PayPal, and then Quicken will actually be looking for either the email address that you use to log into PayPal or your PayPal password. Now, in some cases, you might run into a scenario where your user ID will not be accepted by Quicken. When that's the case, you're going to get an error message from Quicken, typically because your email address may be too long in order to create the kind of PayPal ID that will be accepted by Quicken. And so what you'll need to do when you have a business PayPal account is to log into that account to create a PayPal user ID. You are then going to log in and go to the Profile section. When you get to the Profile section, you're going to go to this link that says My Settings. That's going to bring you to the settings area of your profile page. When you do that, you're going to click this Update link where it says Manage Users. Once you're in that screen, you are then going to click Add User. And then you're going to create a user ID and password for the Quicken account that you're going to be using. Once you have all the data in, you're then going to click Continue. You'll then determine permissions, and typically what you're going to want to set up is a virtual agent that'll give you the ability to use this ID to schedule and download transaction history and run a settlement report. Once you've done that, you'll then click Continue. Once you've completed this, you can click Done. Then you can then go back to Quicken. You're then going to use your new user ID as well as your new password. Once you've done that, you'll click Save this password, and then you'll click Connect. You will then have connected your PayPal for Business account. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now going to go through the process of adding a bank account to our Quicken system. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Tools menu. We're going to go and add an account. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then click Checking. Now what you'll want to do is to search for your financial institution by name, and you can start by writing in that name into the search box. And once you have that name, what you're going to do then is you're then going to click Next. And then you'll be asked for your login and password from your online account. You'll then write that information in. You'll then click Save this password, and then you'll click Connect. And just as you did with PayPal, you will add in this information. And once you've determined the information correctly, you'll then click Next. Then you will have completed the process of adding your bank account. And you can add as many bank accounts as you like. You can add in bank accounts from significant others. Anything that is associated with your business that you spend money either for or from, you can add to your Quicken account. Once you've completed the addition of this new bank account, you're then going to click Finish. You'll then go through the same process that you used when going through PayPal. You will then look at each individual expense, and you'll determine if it is a business expense or a personal expense. And if it is a business expense, you will then change the category and determine how you want to categorize it on your financial statement. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, in some cases, Quicken will actually guess as to what your categories are for a particular expense or income source. However, you will notice that on your home screen for Quicken, you'll typically be told that there are some uncategorized transactions. So whatever you haven't categorized and whatever Quicken did not guess to categorize, there will be a warning here that you have some transactions that you will want to then categorize. You can actually then click this button. What you can do then is you can click inside of each one of these transactions, and then you can actually use the drop down arrow, or you can create a new category. Once you've clicked the category, you'll then click Save. You'll be required to put in your transaction password. And then you'll notice that you now have 3 uncategorized transactions. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and categorize all of your transactions until you have taken care of everything in this screen. Now, once you've categorized all your expenses, whether or not you have categorized them based on what came over when you downloaded it or whether you entered it manually, you are then ready to start looking at reports to determine your financial position for your business. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video.